thanks for watching Doing Life with Jenny. If you are new here, I am currently a Spanish teacher in the United States, but I am soon moving to Mexico and building a house in the state of Hidalgo. Today we are making some shirts. See my video about my plans for 2023 if you want to see more details about why. And while we are making the shirts, I'm going to elaborate on something from a few videos ago where I talked about the steps you need to take before moving to Mexico, and that's living in Mexico before you leave in Mexico. So I'm going to tell you about my story and journey in living in Mexico before actually living here. I know the lighting is poor. It's starting to get dark outside, so it's kind of fine at the moment, but here in a second I'm going to have to turn that one on and then it's going to be bad. Sorry. So first we got to figure out which embroidered patches we're putting on which shirts. So we have a treble clef sign, obviously a Mexican flag, Chicago Bulls, can't forget our beagle. I'm a beagle mom of two. And some little dinosaurs. And before I show you the shirts I have, the first time I went to Mexico was in 2005. And I made a video specifically about the first time going to Mexico, but I'll cut it short and to the point so I can move on in this video. But essentially I went to study abroad there in Oaxaca. It wasn't what I expected, so I ended up going to my now ex-husband's parents' house in a small town that nobody's heard of, where there are no other gringos to be found. So we have a long sleeve, like kind of mint or seafoamy green t-shirt. Same thing, but in a dark, like charcoal gray. A green sweatshirt. It was supposed to be like a seafoamy mint green, but it's like regular green, which is fine. I also like that color on me. A purpley plum color, and then a gray sweatshirt. So I'm going to figure out which patch should go with which color. So yeah, but basically I ended up at the now ex-husband's family's house. To make it easier to spit out the story, I'm just going to say the husband and the in-laws instead of ex, because that's adding too many syllables. Let's sort these out so I can see what matches what. Basically, since 2005 until, I don't know when, until like the whole time I was married, I guess, which was 7 years, I would go down and spend at least 2 weeks with his family. Again, in the middle of nowhere, where nobody else spoke English. And since they lived in a small town, there weren't like any tourist attractions to see really. So it was like really getting a feel for what daily life is in Mexico. His mom had a restaurant, so I would just go hang out with her, help her out a little bit. I would run the errands with her, and eventually I would run them for her, which felt like a big accomplishment to like be in a foreign country where they don't speak my first language and like go out on my own to buy the groceries and whatnot. One of these little dinosaurs on the purple shirt, because like dinosaurs for a 37-year-old woman is kind of fun and quirky, and purple is like the quirky color out of this bunch, but there's like not a big enough contrast, I don't think. Maybe we'll put on the gray. I think this is what I have decided. So yeah, living with my husband's parents, I got to do things that your average person doesn't get to do. I would say we would make tortillas by hands, like from scratch. She would grind the corn. She did have a machine that did it for her. It wasn't like the stone grinder, although some people do that. And then we would make the tortillas by hand, would wash the laundry by hand as well. But even if I wasn't living there for like a long period of time consecutively, I really got a feel for the country because I was living with the locals, like the locals, and because I would go year after year. I said like the minimum would be 2 weeks every year, but there was one year that I lived there like for a more extended period of time and went multiple times. It had to do with my husband's visa, but that's a whole different story. But basically, I spent the entire summer there, so like almost 2.5 months, and I went down for every holiday: Christmas break, Thanksgiving break, what else is there? Easter break. But that really felt like I was living there because, again, it wasn't a touristy town. But even though it's not a touristy place, like just going for 2 weeks, it still feels like a little vacation, just like, oh, this is different. But having to be there for like the entire summer and going multiple times that particular year, it really felt like, okay, we're just doing life because there's nothing else to do. Nothing is new anymore. Here's something I don't take out very often. I have used it a couple times since moving to the apartment because they have the clothing line to dry the clothes downstairs. So it's just helping to not make it feel like rough, you know how it is when it air dries. So let's get that warmed up so we can iron our patches on. So yeah, those were my early days in Mexico. Then let's see, probably after my husband got his visa, up until we got divorced, I didn't go to Mexico at all for a few years. There was one year I went to Argentina to do a study abroad for my master's program, and I don't know what the deal was, honestly. But basically, there were a few years where I didn't go to Mexico at all. It was like from the time I started working on my master's degree, which I think was in 2010, until I got divorced in 2013. I didn't go mostly because I was working on the master's and had summer classes, and then I did go study abroad in Argentina one summer. But once we got divorced, I started going back to Mexico regularly again. Yeah, so I started going back to Mexico again in 2017. Oh. I started going back to Mexico again in 2017. So I guess even after the divorce, I still didn't go back because I was exploring other countries. I did go to Costa Rica and India during that time frame. Yeah, so 2017. And I went twice that summer. I hopped all around the country. So in 2017, I went twice that summer. I'm gonna get it backwards, like which cities I went to when. But I know I started in Guadalajara both times. From there, I don't know which trip, but I went to Aguascalientes, Guanajuato. I went to Las Grutas de Tolantongo in my state, Hidalgo. And I'm missing something. Puebla. Oh, and Querétaro. And that honestly was a bit more touristy, but I always make it a point to meet and hang out with the local people. Kind of during the day I do the touristy stuff because everyone else is at work because they're not free to do anything. I met some good friends in Guadalajara from salsa dancing, and of course at salsa dancing it's all Mexicans. There were no other foreigners there. Well, if there were, there weren't many. It wasn't obvious. Okay, I think these are going on nicely. I think I have the hang of it. And here we go, the reason we are making this video today. I originally didn't plan for this Mexican flag to go on the green sweatshirt. One, because it was supposed to be like mint green, and two, mint green would look kind of tacky with the Mexican flag. But since they sent me the wrong green, it's kind of working. So yeah, ever since 2017, I've been going back to Mexico at least once each summer. Going back to places I've already seen, going to new places, but always the point of the trip was to meet local peoples, keep up with my Spanish, and to just do daily life, not necessarily see the tourist attractions, although I, again, did see some. Oh, and I forgot to mention Mexico City, my favorite city. How did I not mention it? It was like just too obvious in my brain, but I've gone there so many times as well. So yeah, like we were talking about a few videos ago, you need to live in the country before you actually live in the country, like a test run. Because it's one thing to go on vacation and be at a beach, be at a resort, or even if you choose something that's not a beach, or even if you choose something that's a little bit more like with the locals and you're staying at an Airbnb, if you're not living like a local, you're not speaking the language, you're not doing daily tasks like going to pay a bill or get a cell phone set up, you really just don't know what it's like. Because Mexico is a whole different ball game when it comes to like dealing with the bureaucracy and dealing with people. And then there is this period whenever you go to another country, there's like culture shock, and there's like the honeymoon phase, and then eventually you're gonna come into this phase where like everything annoys you because it's just different. So if you don't stay past the honeymoon phase, you're just gonna think everything is ponies and rainbows. You need to wait until that annoying phase to see how annoying it is. And then eventually it's like, oh, this is my new norm, and you kind of go back up the slope again to something that's more tolerable, but you want to make sure it's a little better than tolerable, like you want to be happy in your new country. So in my most recent trips, starting in I didn't go to Mexico in 2020 because nobody went anywhere in 2020, but I went back down in 2021, did I? I went to Ecuador. Did I go to Mexico that summer too? I don't recall. Probably. I feel like I went on 2 trips that summer. But that October is when I went down to buy the land. But that's about as real as it gets. You know, going to see the pyramids near Mexico City versus going to buy some land or a house. I probably should have washed this one first because I'm afraid the green is going to bleed onto the white patch. Maybe if I wash it in cold. But all of the trips since buying the land have been kind of like me living there without living there because my house isn't ready yet. But it's been like taking care of business kind of stuff. You know, filling out paperwork, getting my visa, so going to different government buildings, meeting my lawyer for my land dispute, which we should be hearing something this month. But yeah, in my video where I went down to get my visa, I even told you then, like, I wasn't doing much tourist stuff, very, very little. I was just there to get my visa, go see my land, pick out stuff for the house. Once the land dispute gets resolved here shortly, I'll have to make a quick trip down to sign some paperwork again. The lawyer has power of attorney for some tasks, but anything related to like buying or selling real estate, he cannot sign that. So after he finishes his part, I'll have to go down to sign something like directly related to buying the house. Yeah, so I'm just telling you all this because I don't want you to think, oh yeah, I was backpacking through Mexico for a month and I loved it, or I went to Cancun for 2 weeks and I loved it. Living there and going on vacation are 2 very, very different things. I just want you to know what you're signing up for. Although maybe you're adventurous and you're comfortable anywhere, I'm a little bit like that. I can adapt pretty easily. So maybe that's the part that is appealing for you, is like going and not really know what you're signing up for. I could see that. In my next video, we're going to address another part of that video where I talked about what to do before moving to Mexico, and that will be why you need to learn Spanish. So stay tuned for that. You know, props to you YouTubers that do these kind of videos where it's like getting ready with me while I answer your questions, because I can't talk and do these shirts at the same time. I don't know how people do that. So we're about finished here. I'll show you what the shirts look like here when I'm finished. But please, in the comment section, let me know, do you live in a different country? Are you moving to a different country? And have you like given it a test drive yet? If so, for how long? Let me know what your experiences have been. Now this one's hard because we have these 3 tiny dinosaurs. I don't know how to arrange them. Is that ridiculous? I'm 37, but I've always been fascinated by dinosaurs. Like, I don't read about them really. But like anytime I travel, I try to see if they're like dinosaur fossils I can go see or something. There haven't been yet. One of these days. But yeah, that's it for this video. Stick around after the end to see how the shirts turned out. Thank you so much for watching. And if you would like to continue and follow me in my journey in moving from the US to Mexico, be sure to subscribe and don't forget to hit that bell.